Okay, picking up again, before we start on the final process in stakeholder management, which is monitor stakeholder engagement, I want to spend a few minutes just discussing the roles and responsibilities of some of the key stakeholders around you. So I will identify these roles and use them later in a responsibility assignment matrix, or a subset of the RAM, responsibility assignment matrix, is the RACI chart. And we'll talk about that in, I think, communications management. So just know you're going to use knowledge of this later. So there can be more than one sponsor. So the example of a charter I gave you had a sponsor's signature. That's common, but in reality, you can have more than one sponsor. Just be aware of that. And that's okay. They should each sign the charter. Now, the project sponsor is somebody who's involved in all 5 process groups: initiating, planning, executing, controlling, and closing. And I've listed here some of the things that they would do in each. Remember, they are not responsible for your project. The only one wholly responsible is you, the project manager. But the sponsor plays a key role. They have the budget. They are going to give you your authority when they sign the charter. When I was in the Air Force, I had a charter, and even when I was a contractor, I was working a project, and actually had the 3-star, which is the deputy commander, who signs most things for the 4-star. The 4-star doesn't usually sign things themselves. The 3-star runs the command for them. I had them sign the sponsor. That kind of weight gave me real authority. They're going to provide us with the statement of work, and they're going to sign the charter, as I mentioned. In planning, they need to give you time to plan. Very important. Many people want it now, but time to plan is very important. They'll review the work breakdown structure. Remember, they're a senior person who in management who has knowledge of things to consider and pitfalls. They are going to supply you then with some of the risks. And you're going to ask them which reports they would like. They're going to be a form of expert trade-off and help you evaluate trade-offs in your project. And they're actually going to sign the project plan also. Then they have a role in executing and controlling. They're going to protect the project. They're going to help enforce policies. They're a source of expert judgment, I mentioned. They may direct a QA review, quality assurance review of your project. That's okay. As the project manager, I want it, because the QA review helps me know that my processes are being followed. More on that in quality management. So I'm happy to have it. And then in closing, they're going to provide formal acceptance as a customer and go with you to the customer to close out the project. Now, the team also has a role. There's a project team and the project management team. Okay? Be aware of that. I'm going to talk about those in just a second. The project team, I'll talk about them now. The project team is everybody on your team. The project management team, look at my final bullets. Those are people with a special responsibility. They are often project managers themselves who will understand the value of the detailed work and the secrecy nature of stakeholder plans or how to do earned value management. So they can be very, very valuable to you. And that's the project management team versus the project team. Now, this team is going to help you plan. They're going to create the work breakdown structure. They're going to decompose items as we break them down. They're going to give you your time estimates, especially if they're leading the work package to produce a deliverable, etc., etc., etc. And they're going to help you enforce the ground rules that we just talked about. That's gold. Your project team is very valuable. We've talked before about a functional manager. Oftentimes, this is a person who owns the resources. So the sponsor has the money, the functional manager owns the resources, and you have to work your project in some sort of matrix environment. So you could have a functional organization where the PM works right for the function. So maybe it's operations is one function, and everybody in operations works in a stovepipe, in a straight up and down vertical. And then there's maintenance, and everybody in maintenance works in the up and down vertical. That's our functional managers, and the PM really does little directing. It's mostly the functional manager who is doing it. A projectized organization, the PM has all the directing and the budget, and a matrix organization where there's a sharing. And we've discussed these before, where there is sharing is weak matrix, strong matrix, or balanced matrix. You want to review those if those are not familiar terms. We've already covered them. Functional managers, you'll want them as part of your planning effort because they understand the resources and the skill level. So they may have an engineer, but you want engineer skill level 3, and they can only afford to give you engineer skill level 5 fresh out of college. Maybe that's then going to slow down your schedule, which adds cost to your project. So you want to be careful as you negotiate with them. And you'll want them to accept the final schedule, because in doing so, they have accepted to commit the resources. Now, the project manager yourself, it is your job to meet the objectives. You are the one in charge. You are the one that analyzes. Remember, that's what a PM does first. In just about any scenario, you analyze first before reacting. You are not a technical expert, but you have enough technical knowledge to ask the right questions. You influence the team. You do conflict management. You identify dependencies, even though your team is developing the schedule, and that sort of thing. Okay? You're the only one who can integrate all of the knowledge areas, because you have the big picture plan in mind. Okay? Some additional roles and responsibilities. There's portfolio manager, we discussed in the first week's lessons. The program manager also, remember, those are a group of related projects, where portfolio is largely tied to, they may or may not be related, but they're tied together by some strategic value. Portfolio also includes ops. So there you go, roles and responsibilities. I thought was worth a few minutes of our time. So now in the final minutes of this last segment of stakeholders, we're going to monitor stakeholder engagement process. This is the process of monitoring the relationships and tailoring strategies for engaging stakeholders throughout the project. The real benefit to this is it increases the efficiency and effectiveness of stakeholder engagement and is performed throughout the project. So there are the inputs include planning, the project plan, which again, if the test asks, well, what in the project plan? Bam! Communications, stakeholders, those are always great answers, and resources, as I just defined in resource management, as I just defined the roles and responsibilities so that you understand who you're engaging. The project documents, the issues log, lessons learned, risk register, and of course, remember we're in stakeholders still, so bam, stakeholder register is a good one. And then work performance data. We discussed that in the first week, but I'm gathering this in execution, this work performance data. It's raw was the key word I used. And it contains data on the project status, such as which stakeholders are supportive of the project and their level and type of engagement. So then I have tools to consider, which include data analysis. And that includes several types. One is alternatives analysis, which is to evaluate options to various responses. Root cause analysis, which is finding out the underlying reason that something is happening. And stakeholder analysis to determine the position. So remember the salience model we talked about, or the power and interest grid. Those would be examples of that. Okay? Of data analysis. Then decision making is another tool. There are a couple of points. One is multi-criteria decision making. This is criteria for successful stakeholder engagement are prioritized and weighted. So there's multiple criteria. You put them in a priority by weighting them. And then voting is also another decision-making tool. can be used to select the best response for variants of stakeholder engagement. Data representation is another tool, and this is really about tracking changes in the level of engagement for each stakeholder. There's communication skills, including feedback and presentations. Interpersonal skills, when I'm monitoring them, active listening comes to mind. Culture awareness, leadership, networking, and political skills. We've kind of discussed those. And then finally, the outputs of monitor stakeholder engagement. So let me make that more visible. The outputs of monitor stakeholder engagement include work performance information. So if data is in, work performance information is an output always in the standard control processes. So work performance information includes information about the status of the stakeholder engagement. Whenever I'm dealing with stakeholders, change requests come to mind for corrective and preventive actions. So they're going to have ideas as you're talking to them. And then there's project plan updates and project document updates to consider. Okay. The only thing I would add to the project document updates in my mind would be a change log document update. Since changes are an output, I would update the change log, but that's me. They didn't include it, and so you won't either for the exams. Okay, that was excellent. Now I am, again, trying to tie, in the end, build a plan that will have baselines for scope or requirements, schedule, which is time management, and cost, and develop the estimates based on that. So I'm integrating all these with stakeholder needs. That's the tie to this lesson. Okay, it's a very important one-slide view. Okay, that's it. Next will be communications management. Thank you very much.